Welcome to this Pepperl and Fuchs training session on AS Interface, the world's most successful low-level I/O network for standard and safety I/O devices. This training session will discuss why networks are used, explain the operation of AS Interface, and introduce you to the basic components needed to successfully set up a network. Even today, in many installations, sensors are hardwired to input cards located in the PLC rack or perhaps connected to remote I/O racks typically mounted in junction boxes. In both cases, the sensor cable must be routed from the sensor to the input card, with each sensor requiring a separate cord set. This process is a very labor and cost-intensive way to connect inputs to the control system since many cables must be routed to the PLC I/O cards. Each cable lead must be stripped and possibly prepared using a ferrule. Every cable needs appropriate labeling, and since cables are usually not directly connected to the I/O cards but are marshaled via terminal strips, the number of enclosure terminations is even greater. In addition to labor driving up the cost of the system and delaying machine delivery, other cost factors should be considered. Some of them are high overall cable cost, many large cable trays or conduit to support the cables, marshaling unnecessarily increases the size of the enclosures. Some applications demand stainless steel enclosures, which drive the cost of cabinets and junction boxes up even more. Networks in general, and AS Interface in particular, address those problems very well. The main difference between a hardwired approach and a solution utilizing a network is that the I/O is brought closer to the sensors. The PLC backplane does not need costly I/O cards any longer, but instead provides means to communicate with the I/O modules mounted in the field, close to the sensors. Utilizing a network will have the following positive effects on the labor costs and build time of a system. Sensors are directly connected to the networked I/O modules, reducing the cost of pulling cable throughout the system. Many modern module solutions utilize quick disconnects to further reduce the wiring time. In many cases, labeling is simplified or not even necessary. For instance, since the sensors are directly connected to the I/O instead of through marshalling connections, at least 50% of the labels are no longer needed. Fewer wiring errors will be made, and those errors that are present are much simpler to find. LEDs on the modules immediately indicate the sensor status. A second person, necessary to ring out hardwired connections, is no longer needed. While the labor aspect is significant, additional hardware savings are realized. Shorter and fewer cables cost a lot less money. Instead of hundreds of cables, only the network cable is routed along the machine. Using a network cable also reduces the size of the cable tray or conduit and can even make them unnecessary in many cases. Finding I/O modules with a suitable IP rating eliminates the need for junction boxes. AS Interface provides all these advantages as it is both an industrial sensor network and a highly developed installation system. During this session, you will learn about the features that make AS Interface unique and why it is the world's most successful I/O level network. What is an AS Interface? While there is a lot to say about this technology, we want to give you 8 facts that are unique about the AS Interface. These facts are the main reasons for the global success of AS Interface. AS Interface is a simple networking solution that reduces wiring by approximately 90%. Using an inexpensive, easy to work with 2-conductor cable, it is possible to bring 248 sensor signals to the PLC and have the PLC control 248 outputs. AS Interface was the first fully certified networking solution able to combine standard and safe I/O on the same cable. Devices like e-stops, light curtains, magnetic door switches, key-operated interlock switches, plus many other safety devices, along with standard I/O, sensors, electronic outputs, relays, and so on, are connected to the same cable. A dedicated training module introduces the Safety at Work technology. AS Interface is a truly open network supported by 300-plus vendors offering thousands of products. And with strict compatibility testing, using products from several vendors is never a problem. AS Interface was not developed by a PLC manufacturer, but instead by a number of sensor manufacturers. As such, it is PLC neutral and offers connections to many PLCs and all commonly used upper-level industrial networks. Scanner cards to Allen Bradley, Siemens, GE, Mitsubishi, and more are available. AS Interface utilizes a piercing connection technology that cannot be beaten in terms of simplicity and connection security. For years, Pepperl & Fuchs has been offering field-mounted I/O modules that satisfy IP68-69K and are suitable for the harshest application environments. Many additional accessory items make using AS Interface simple and guarantee a consistent and fast installation. As mentioned before, AS Interface is the world's #1 low-level networking solution. To date, over 18 million nodes have been installed, a number that is growing at about 2 million annually. AS Interface is deterministic and fast. Deterministic means that a worst-case update time can be given. This is important since PLC programmers need to know when they will get sensor data. Speed is important for controlling fast automation processes. A simple rule of thumb states that each module on the network will only take about 150 microseconds to update its inputs and outputs. Very important for machine builders is the fact that with AS Interface, the I/O structure, safety system, and even electrical drawings need to be designed just once. Using a different PLC is not going to change anything, as only the scanner card or gateway gets swapped out. After several years of development and testing, AS Interface Specification 2.0 was released in 1994. At the time, 31 I/O modules could be connected to the network, providing up to 124 inputs and 124 outputs with an update time of 5 milliseconds or better. The initial success of the solution made it clear that users needed the ability to connect more I/O. With Specification 2.1, the number of modules per network increased to 62. In addition to more I/O capabilities, it was also possible to connect analog devices to AS Interface, and the diagnostics capabilities were improved. In 2001, Safety at Work was released, the first approved solution for combining standard and safe I/O on the same network. This was a revolutionary concept as it utilized the simplicity of the AS Interface to drastically reduce the complexity of safety wiring. The next technological innovation occurred in 2005 with the introduction of Specification 3.0, increasing the I/O capabilities even further. Working with analog data was enhanced, and analog throughput speed was increased. This specification also defined a method by which larger amounts of serial information could be transmitted over AS Interface. In 2008, Pepperl & Fuchs released the Enhanced Safety Monitor, taking full advantage of the safe outputs that became available the same year. In 2012, Pepperl & Fuchs introduced a compact standalone safety controller with expansion port. This unique safety device is ideal for all safety applications that are currently configured using expensive discrete wiring and takes full advantage of all AS Interface I/O solutions and installation accessories. The future will certainly bring new advances, making AS Interface more powerful, extending its application space even more. It is important to know that all these changes were made with backward compatibility in mind. In fact, an AS Interface scanner or gateway sold today can control any AS Interface device ever built. And you can add Safety at Work to any network, new or old. This is a level of compatibility and security that no other solution can offer, and the reason why AS Interface is called investment safe. Before we get to the next section, we should summarize the most important things we have learned about the AS Interface. AS Interface is designed to replace cumbersome and costly discrete wiring. AS Interface is an open technology, and hundreds of products are available from roughly 300 suppliers. AS Interface is an industrial, fast, and deterministic solution. AS Interface allows any industrial safety application to be solved. In this section, we will show you how an AS Interface system is put together and what kind of components are available and necessary. Looking at several real-life applications reveals the flexibility and power of AS Interface. A system summary will conclude this section. Let's take a look at the basics. AS Interface is a two-conductor power and data network. You can connect modules anywhere, and the network can have any shape. We call this unique feature topology-free, and only AS Interface supports it. When setting up a network, just make sure the total cable length in this segment does not exceed 100 meters. If you need larger networks, you can combine multiple segments, each up to 100 meters in total length. A gateway or scanner card brings the input data into the PLC and allows the PLC to set outputs on the modules. By far, the most common, easiest, and fastest way to install an AS interface system is by using the famous mechanically coded flat cable to ensure correct connection polarity. Generally, you can connect and remove AS interface devices from the network without interrupting communication. The yellow cable powers the network and the connected modules and enables communication. The black aux power cable supplies current for outputs. If a network does not use modules requiring aux power, it is not necessary to even run the black cable at all. Modules, or more generally speaking, devices, are assigned an address. The gateway or scanner card uses these addresses to talk to the modules. Depending on the type and design of the module, each module is assigned a numerical address between 1 and 31. These numbers comprise the full address. Other modules utilize a half address. Half addresses range from 1A to 31A, called the A addresses, or from 1B to 31B, called the B addresses. Half addresses allow the number of network devices to be increased to 62 from the original 31. All modules are powered from a dedicated AS interface power supply, which is depicted by the dark green block. Since data and power are transmitted over the same two conductors, an AS interface power supply contains additional decoupling circuitry. Attempting to power the network from a conventional 24-volt DC power supply inhibits communication and won't work. You can connect the AS interface power supply anywhere along the network. In many cases, AS interface is used to construct very large networks. Because the AS interface cable is easy to work with and the network allows for a large number of I/O devices, depicted by the yellow blocks, large networks are a real strength of this technology. Since a single network segment must not contain more than 100 meters of cable, building larger networks is accomplished by combining several segments using a repeater depicted by the red block. Because a repeater galvanically isolates the two segments, each segment must have its own AS interface power supply, represented by the dark green blocks. This is a good time to summarize some basic layout features of AS interface. A single AS interface network can handle up to 62 field or enclosure-mounted I/O modules. This number of modules results in hundreds of possible I/O points on a simple 2-conductor, 16-gauge, unshielded cable. The most commonly used cable is the famous AS interface yellow flat cable. This cable is the basis of the easy, reliable piercing technology that contributes significantly to the flexibility of AS interface. With a current capacity up to 8 amps, the cable is used to power modules and carry the communication signal. By combining several network segments, large networks with over 500 meters of cable can be constructed. By following these simple rules, no termination is required and the network topology is unrestricted. No other networking technology offers this flexibility. Pepperl & Fuchs offers a vast number of AS interface devices, ranging from gateways and scanner cards to field and enclosure-mounted I/O modules to cable and mounting accessories. The next few slides will discuss these products in greater detail. The easiest way to discuss AS interface components is by product category. We will be looking at gateways and scanner cards, sometimes called masters, power supplies, repeaters, and other parts necessary to make up the AS interface network infrastructure. And the largest group of products by far, the modules, sensors, and similar items also known as slaves. In this section, you will learn about the Pepperl & Fuchs nomenclature used for AS interface products. This information is helpful because the product name not only identifies the kind of product, gateway, power supply, or I/O module, but also contains useful information about the upper-level network supported by the gateway, the I/O mix of modules, and whether these modules are used full address or extended addressing. Don't worry if some of the terms don't mean anything to you yet, and if you do not recall what full or half address module means, you can always go back and review the terminology. Gateways are devices that couple an AS interface network to an upper-level network. This setup is a very powerful way of working with AS interface, since just about every PLC supports some kind of upper-level networking solution. The most common solutions for North America are Ethernet IP, DeviceNet, and Profibus. Of course, we also offer other solutions including Modbus, CC-Link, and Profinet. From the PLC's point of view, a gateway is a remote I/O rack with lots of inputs and outputs. Backplane scanner cards that directly connect to the PLC backplane. The AS interface network is then connected to the AS interface port of the scanner. Each solution, gateway or scanner card, has its own strengths and advantages. Using one and not the other is frequently more of a personal preference than anything else. For instance, some engineers like the flexibility that comes with making AS interface a part of their Ethernet IP infrastructure, while others are more comfortable with a direct connection to the backplane. The model names of the Pepperl & Fuchs AS interface gateways start with VAG or VBG. The A indicates older gateways that support only 31 modules on the network. While such gateways are no longer offered, you should still be familiar with the nomenclature, as this simplifies suggesting a compatible replacement product. Modules connected to a VAG gateway must have either a full address or an A address. Modules assigned a B address are not allowed and cannot be used. Devices with B are more modern and support modules with full and half addresses. All gateways offered by Pepperl & Fuchs today follow the latest AS interface specification. VAM and VBM indicate mostly PLC scanner cards. A and B have the same meaning as in the case of the gateways. Today, following the latest AS interface specification, we are only offering VBM type scanner cards. It is very important to note that every network must have exactly one gateway or scanner card. A dual network gateway or scanner can service two independent AS interface networks. An AS interface segment is powered by a suitable AS interface power supply. These power supplies operate at an elevated primary voltage of 30.5 volts and contain the decoupling circuit. Decoupling allows power and communications on the same cable, a main feature of the AS interface. To meet the current needs of the devices on the network, Pepperl & Fuchs offers power supplies with output current between 2.8 amps and 8 amps. We also offer AS interface power supplies that have the ability to detect ground faults. Detecting and preventing ground faults is important, as these faults significantly limit the ability of the AS interface to tolerate line noise. The model names of AS interface power supplies start with the letter combination VAN. When designing an AS interface network, remember that each network must have exactly one power supply. If the network has multiple segments, each segment must have its own AS interface power supply. While it is common to place the AS interface power supply near the gateway or scanner card, this is not a requirement. You can connect the power supply anywhere along the network or segment. There are a few basic AS interface design rules. A network segment can be 100 meters long. Let's call this the 100-meter segment rule. If that is not enough, you can combine multiple segments using repeaters. Pepperl & Fuchs offers repeaters for field installation offering IP67 and enclosure installation designed to satisfy IP20. Our IP20 version has a selectable termination switch that under certain conditions allows the length of the segment to be up to 200 meters. Make sure to contact Pepperl & Fuchs technical support when working on an application that will break the 100-meter segment rule. A power conditioner is another kind of power supply. The easiest way to think about it is to envision the decoupling circuitry, of an AS interface power supply in a separate housing. Using a power conditioner, it is possible to power the AS interface network from a standard power supply. This solution may be an attractive alternative in some cases, but it is certainly not the standard way of doing things. Generally, AS interface networks should utilize AS interface power supplies and observe the 100-meter segment rule. Always contact Pepperl & Fuchs for assistance if you intend to violate those two conditions. The product name of our AS interface repeaters starts with VAR. Since power conditioners are considered power supplies, these products also start with VAN. Repeaters are used to create larger AS interface networks. They simply couple individual segments. Our enclosure mount repeater comes with a selectable terminator that, under certain conditions, allows the 100-meter segment rule to be broken. Make sure you contact Pepperl & Fuchs for more information. When using a power conditioner, the power conditioner needs to be supplied from a conventional, non-AS interface power supply. Ideally, a 30-volt DC supply, like the ones Pepperl & Fuchs offers, should be utilized, but in certain situations, a conventional 24-volt supply can also be used. This is where the real action is. I/O modules are the largest group of products offered for AS interface. This is where the sensors are connected and outputs controlled. You should know the following basic facts. A large number of I/O modules are designed for enclosure-mounted applications. These modules are rated IP20. Many other modules are designed for field-mounted applications. These are rated IP65 or higher. Pepperl & Fuchs offers a comprehensive selection of I/O modules for washdown situations where IP68-69K is required. In general, sensors connected to the modules are powered from the yellow AS interface cable, while outputs are powered from the black aux power cable. With very few exceptions, an input-only module does not connect to the aux power cable. The connection diagrams on our datasheets tell you whether or not aux power is required. The yellow AS interface cable is certainly always needed, and it is used to establish communications. The product names of AS interface modules contain a lot of useful information. You should know that VAA identifies those modules that always utilize a full address on the network. VBA modules support half addressing. The letters E and A preceded by numbers specify the I/O mix. E stands for inputs and A stands for outputs. The example specifies a module supporting half addresses with 4 inputs and 4 outputs. Besides on-off type sensors and outputs, AS interface can process analog signals. Modules designed for voltage, current, and temperature input signals or voltage and current output signals make analog signal processing very simple. Just like our digital I/O modules, Pepperl & Fuchs offers analog modules suitable for enclosure and field-mounted applications. Pepperl & Fuchs is in a unique position to offer AS interface-enabled absolute encoders. To connect these, only a simple M12 cable is necessary, still giving these devices 16 bits of data in the PLC. Occasionally, sensor input signals with additional diagnostics are required. This is where advanced diagnostic sensors are used. Contrary to conventional sensors that are connected to AS interface I/O modules, these intelligent sensors have the necessary AS interface electronics built right in. They are directly connected to the network and not to an I/O module. The intelligent proximity sensors offer coil monitoring, which signals that the sensor is functioning correctly. Pre-collision detection signals when the sensor target is too close to the sensor face and a collision could be imminent. Intelligent photoelectric sensors provide dirty lens detection. Depending on the model, additional diagnostic bits may be available. Stack lights are commonly used on machines to indicate operational status, the status of a safety system, or to indicate when and where supervisor help is needed. Virtually every machine, small or large, has at least one stack light. Our stack light is fully configurable by combining color and sound modules using a simple yet secure bayonet-type latching mechanism. Right angle and straight mounting options make installation of the stack light easy. In applications where AS interface is not used, this stack light can be used without the AS interface module option. No AS interface offering would be complete without specialty solutions including push-button modules, connectivity solutions for AC sensors, pneumatic modules, valve position sensors, and more. Always make sure you talk to Pepperl & Fuchs Technical Support if you need an odd kind of AS interface module. Chances are Pepperl & Fuchs can offer it. Pepperl & Fuchs offers a number of conventional, non-AS interface power supplies. These power supplies have an adjustable output voltage, which make them particularly useful in situations where the voltage drop along long cables is a concern. These power supplies are designed for use as conventional DC power sources, where the flexibility of an adjustable output voltage is advantageous, aux power supplies for AS interface installations. In conjunction with our new heavy gauge black flat cable, it is possible to have rather long aux power cable runs and/or solve application situations where higher aux current is needed. Power supply to power AS interface networks over the power conditioner introduced earlier. For those customers who do not want to use 110 volts AC in their enclosure, an available three-phase power supply allows running AS interface from 380 volts AC to 500 volts AC three-phase source. Now that we have reached the end of part 1 of the AS interface training, let's quickly summarize what we've learned about the AS interface components necessary to set up a network. Every network must have exactly one gateway or scanner card to interface with the PLC. And every network segment must be powered using an AS interface power supply with decoupling. This power supply provides the power to run I/O modules and the connected sensors. Any installation needs a network cable and makes use of the accessory devices we are offering. Each module must be given a full or half address, ranging from 1 to 31. Most I/O modules offer 4 digital inputs and outputs. However, other I/O mixes are available. With AS interface, very large networks are possible by combining multiple 100-meter segments. Combining segments allows for networks with 500 meters or more total network cable. Segments are combined using repeaters. Since repeaters electrically isolate joint segments, each must be powered by its own AS interface power supply.